answer your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much for speaking of your experience, and from a military standpoint as well as from our standpoint, comparing the two was really beneficial. Now I'll move on to the question number 3. Speaking from your own experience in Kosovo, how would you describe the current state of conflict and or peace in Kosovo and the region?
I think I think there's still. This is from my own observation because I had the opportunity to interact with the locals while I was there, and it depends. If you go to areas that are predominantly Serb, you will have a different perspective about what they think. Is happening. If you go to places that are predominantly Albanian and other minorities, you will have a different perspective. But I do think that from the military, from the perspective of what's happening there in regards to NATO, I think there have been some positive. They have prevented any ethnic conflict between between Kosovo Serb and Kosovo Albanians. I think that's a success because this is almost like a joint, it's a joint peacekeeping mission. It's not just NATO. There's other members like UN and others that are, including the KSF, the Kosovo Security Force. So everybody's trying to do their part to maintain stability, and thus that. But I think there's still a bit of a friction between the Kosovo Serb and Kosovo Albanian, and you can see that this division by how they express themselves, through things they write on walls, or the how they the flags that they fly, like in how athletes even behave in a football match, soccer games. Like you can is there, like the hate speech that that comes from both sides. That those things are evidence to the works that needs to be done as far as like moving the society behind the ethnic divide borders to see themselves as Kosovo first and foremost before they can see themselves as Kosovo Serb or Kosovo Albanian. So in that context, there's conflict that's not quite resolved yet.
Right. That's really interesting because when I was in the U.S., I worked at the U.S. Senate, and having to behave accordingly with the American politics, I have to consider Kosovo a separate state. And then I had an interview at the Embassy of Serbia, so I go there and there's a huge map where Kosovo is like a part of Serbia. So it was an interesting dynamic how I have to shift between, American politics and Serbian politics, how I have to like change my mindset so quickly. I found that interesting. And it's interesting that you say that it's been positive. I'm not sure if you're aware of like the recent events there. I know there have been some tensions. I think a Serbian politician was killed, and then someone from like some Kosovar was killed too. So there was like a little tension there. But I'm glad to hear that you found it positive because that matters to us as well as peace builders.
I want to add something to that because politically, because I remember the leadership, the politicians are part of the division, because I remember they could not get anything passed in the parliament. There was constantly whenever there's a parliament session, there'll be a tear gas, thrown into the parliament, disturbing the session, and it would be rescheduled, so they're not getting things done. They're not getting things done, things that needs to be, laws that needs to be pushed, that can bring stability so there's the two major parties, the political parties are part of that division, I believed. And I want to just quickly comment on one point. I remember that